I am sure that over the last hour or so, you have found several ways to tackle this challenge, and I'm rather curious about what are your best proposals. But whilst I'm waiting to receive a copy of the same, I thought I would share with you what is it that I did. So my first step was to liaise with the CFO together with the change practitioner, the HR leader I mentioned to you, to build a bit of a connection to understand her reality. What is it that she sees? What I took account of is that she's extremely emotionally intelligent. She doesn't just lead the finance function from a functional point of view, also from a leadership point of view, she's very strong and she knows what kind of leader she would like to be at times of change. She said that she would be willing to spend as much time as possible to bring her team on board, and she will do one-on-ones as well. But she needs a little bit of a push to get them realize that this is the inevitable. So she asked me to run a workshop, and I said, okay, let's go and let's meet, and together with the project manager, a change practitioner, and the finance senior management team, we can have a one-day session to talk about what is waiting for them. What we did is we started with the CFO explaining the rationale behind the change. She explained also that she's very aware that in the US, the pilot of this finance transformation program was a real disaster. But she was committed to make it a success, and they were convinced that this would be helping the company stay ahead of the curve and stay competitive, which is really important at this period of time in the business world. As we were talking, one of the first exercises we did actually, we talked about the emotional cycle of change or grief cycle that many of you might know from Kubler-Ross. We talked about how everyone goes through a curve, goes through a phase of denial, resistance, a bit of danger zone, and then afterwards eventually would explore the new reality and then accept and integrate to the new reality. And we were talking about it as a theory, and then I asked them anonymously to draw a little dot in the curve on a piece of paper and show me where they are in the curve. It was anonymously, but obviously it was a team of 7. The change practitioner and the project managers more observed and supported than participated. And as we showed the results, first anonymously, most of them were under exploring and acceptance, phase 3 and 4 of the emotional cycle, which was obviously not the case because the CFO was aware that they were very much taken back by the news. So we openly talked about it, why they felt it, and they actually said we are only at about the denial resistance phase. We know we no longer can deny it, but we don't know how we could manage that. We can't save our face, save our relationships with these people. So we said that a one-day workshop can't get them to full acceptance, but we want to move them through the danger zone, through the deep of the emotional curve. And for that reason, we want to talk about the good and the bad and the ugly as well during the workshop. What else we did is with the change practitioner, we set aside and we said we need a really good change and comms plan. Of course, you have comms specialists and experts, and you should rely on them. We need to make sure that we know what is legally possible and when is the first time that it can be legally communicated, because the rumor mill is already there. People are well networked within these global organizations, so they already know in other countries this is also going on, but we need to make sure that we are compliant to the UK labour law and the regulations, because later it might backfire. So the change practitioner built a framework with different town halls, one-on-one meetings, team meetings, to make sure that the town halls are there to announce that is coming, the departmental meetings that allow the leaders to actually express their gratitude to everything that has been done before, but also announce the relevance of how it's going to impact the specific team meeting. And then afterwards the leaders have to have their one-on-ones to announce also who is impacted and how, whether they would be in or out, what is the next step. This was really important because the senior managers also wanted to know that they get support. They are not left alone in this situation. They are very seasoned, but it doesn't mean they are not struck by all the emotions that are coming from themselves and also from the employees. What else we did is we needed to create a shared need, a burning platform, as John Kotter says. And it's difficult from a personal point of view, from a business point of view, it was clear after the global recession, a couple of years later, the only way to stay afloat is really offshore, outsource, become more effective. The business rationale was clear, but imagine people, especially in these kind of capacities, who have been working in the same jobs for 10, 15, 20 years. What can you do with them? They've known this company, they've given everything to this company, and now they would be told that their livelihood is going to be at stake. So we looked at threats and opportunities. Threats of not doing the offshoring outsourcing and the opportunities of doing it. And we looked at three groups. We looked at the country manager, because the country manager was unusually silent in this situation, said the CFO can manage everything, but actually we needed his full buy-in and active and visible sponsorship. In the ProSci methodology, you talk a lot about active and visible sponsorship, and I think it's not just for the CFO but also to the managing director, because he would give the context of what's happening in the business, not just in the finance world. The big picture is very important, and he would need to be very actively involved in actually showing why it's important. The second group for these threats and opportunities discussion was the employees who were impacted, so 64 employees. And we came up with reasons, threats of not doing the change pattern, short term and long term. What could they be? Short term, the threats would be that we would be losing the profitable higher margin deals that we have, because we are actually using the profit margin for financial transactional activities that could be done cheaper. But shorter term also is that these people who are doing these jobs, they would be losing their jobs, because if the company is not profitable, they would also be let go either way, sooner or later. The opportunities was a very tricky discussion, because we talked about what could be an opportunity for someone who is going to be let go, who's going to be fired. And short term, long term, we were looking at what it might be, and we said that most people will be in a very deep zone in that grief cycle for a while, because their routine, their livelihood is depending on this job. Their family living is depending on their job, but we could show them that we give them a certain period of time that is allowed by the company policies and by the UK regulations, and we would also offer outplacement services to help them with the transition either to other parts of the business, because there were several divisions that were not suffering as much as this division, or outside of the company. We also looked at what is it that the leaders, the senior managers, could do for them. So we talked about writing endorsement letters, reference letters, and also coaching the employees who are going to be let go on ways to find new jobs outside of the company. By showing this personal interest, people would see that they would be handled and treated with trust and respect and integrity, and that's probably all you can expect when you are in such a difficult situation. We also talked about the threats of not doing this, is that there are actually employees who've been in the very same job for 20 years. Jokingly, we call them the dinosaurs, who've been doing the very same programming on the computer, with sometimes difference in the content that they were adding into the system. But we need to help all of them to come up with the right way forward that can help them stay afloat and stay successful. Then we talked about something that was about proving it, that it's really important for us that all of us, 80 people, would succeed. Very important that it's not just the 64 people who were let go that we have to really pay attention to, but also the ones that stayed. In some methodologies, it's called survival guilt. So the 16 people who stay, who take over some of the responsibilities and would be liaising with the outsourcing team in India, would have survival guilt of why me, why I could stay. So their productivity also can go down, and it's very important that we do equally activities with them to show them why they've been selected to stay on and how they can help their colleagues as well as the remaining team stay successful. It's not an easy one, and that's why we can't ignore them. And when it comes to proving that it is important for us that this is managed with trust and integrity, we talked about three things. The CFO said we need to have a united front as a team. There is no way that any of the seven-member team could stand up and say, I don't actually agree with this, I'm really sorry about this. We all have to have the same opinion, the same approach about it. She also said that she will stand up at the town hall and she will not laugh, like apparently it happened in the US in the pilot. She will show that she's empathetic and that it is a hard change for her to manage. She said that if she was to be told something, she would like to see that empathetic approach from the leader that is breaking that news. And the second thing we looked at after what kind of role modeling they could do is what kind of information they could give. A lot of people are number based, so to understand why it's happening, it's not just the business rationale at a global level or at the country level, but also for their teams, for their clients, for their customers. What are the alarming numbers that actually show that this is important that it happens? Some people wanted to talk already about severance packages as soon as legally it's possible and the HR colleagues can confirm what can be provided. Of course, that can be also under the data, a bit of arguing, proving that it is an important change to happen and bringing people on board even for a difficult change. The third thing was practices and examples. So internally and externally, what kind of examples we could share? We talked about other companies doing similar finance transformational programs, but also talking about the US and what was learned before from a disastrous implementation of a pilot. What's really important is that the employees, even if they are at a more junior level in a multinational company, they are well networked. So they can't be tricked. They would hear it from their colleagues what went well, what didn't go well, gaining their experience, getting the stories out there from them as well, and also openly talking about it and showing how we can actually manage this much better is something that can give hope and some energy to others. To wrap it up, it's an emotionally draining, difficult change, if you ask me, to manage offshoring, outsourcing, and the follow-up of such transformational activities. But they are important and they are happening regularly all over. These were just some of the first steps I've taken care of, and in the interest of time, I will stop here. But believe me, having a local change practitioner, an HR expert, for example, comms expert, and having a project manager who is there to carry through this through different activities is really important. So it's not a one-off workshop. It's not one change manager or change consultant who can manage this. It's a flow. And where we start, how we treat people is the first step. So looking forward to hearing about your recommendations and wish you all the best. Bye.